Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the This Day podcast. This is Megan, and I am so stoked for y'all to hear this podcast episode. This week on the podcast, we have recording artist Justin Gambino. Y'all, Justin is a new friend to the pod, and I'm so stoked for y'all to meet him. So get ready to hear our conversation together after a quick word from our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored by our friends at BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an incredible organization that shines a light on mental health. If you are somebody who struggles with mental health and just wants somebody to talk to, they have professional licensed therapists there to help you round the clock when you need it. You can use our code and get 10% off your first month of therapy. How cool is that? So click the link and get 10% off of your first month of therapy today. Plus, if you are a believer, you can talk to a Christian therapist that understands your perspective from a Christian point of view. Check them out. Well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time today to just hop on and share your story, share about your music and everything happening with you. Why don't you take some time and just give a little bit of an intro to you and what's going on with life for people that may have not been keeping up with all the recent things happening.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Justin Gambino. I am a songwriter based out of Texas. I live a little bit south of Houston, and over the last 2 years or so, I've been making a new album called Made New. It released last August, and I guess you could say this second record. I really feel like I found a sound that really resonated with my audience, but not only just the music, but like the story that's behind the music is something that I kept down inside of me for a long time. Like I kept this story buried for a long time, and whenever I felt like the Lord was really making it clear to me to tell the story of my prodigal years, which was a span of 16 years from 2004 to 2020. I don't know, that was just the time. Just like the last 7, 8 months where I've been sharing this story more than sharing the music has been therapeutic. It's been just an amazing journey the last 7 or 8 months with this. I mean, this is like my second full-length record. So getting my feet wet with my first record and a few EPs and singles and stuff like that. But this record means a lot just because it tells my story.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you do have a very powerful story? So take just a few minutes and share about your story and all that God's been doing in your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll try to do a cliff note version as much as I can, because I mean, I've shared this story and it can span from, you can kind of dwindle it down to like 10 minutes, and then sometimes it's like 45 minutes later, you're finally getting to
Yeah.
the end of the story. But for me, I'll go back to whenever I got my first guitar, which was at the age of 15. And I bring up that age and that time of my life because looking back, whenever I got my first guitar at the age of 15, I I realized just how much God was calling me to music, but then I also realized how much the enemy was paying attention then,
Hmm.
because that was whenever I got my first job. I started getting introduced to a different crowd than what I was raised around, because I was raised in the church my whole life. Um, and so here I am now. I got my first job. I'm introduced to a completely different crowd where now I'm making totally different decisions than what I was making, just at the age of 14, 13, 12. So like, from whenever I was a baby to 14, 15, I would say that I kept my nose pretty clean. And but at the age of 15, started getting mixed up with the wrong crowd, partying on the weekends, trying to lead worship on Sundays and Wednesdays, and try to live two different lives. And before I knew it, just 2 months after I graduated high school, I was standing before a judge, because now I'm making decisions like breaking into buildings and committing theft. And so now it is all caught up with me. And this judge is looking at me. He's looking at this kid that was homeschooled his whole life, kept his nose clean his whole life, and he's never seen me before. And so he starts, like you are now, asking, what the story is. So this judge starts asking
Yeah.
this 18-year-old Justin, how many siblings do you have? Are your parents in the picture? Who brings in the income at home? And so he's asking all these questions, and so I answer them. And that day he gave me a choice. He said, well, you're not going to get off easy. You can leave here today and go to jail and have a felony on your record, or I'd like to give you another option. And I'd like to give you the option of joining a branch of military service, doing a lot of community service, and then just try to get your life back on track, and make good decisions from here on out. And so I took the latter, and I decided to join the U.S. Navy. And I served 8 years in the Navy from 2005 to 2013. But it was during my tour in Iraq in 2007. So this is just like 2 years into my enlistment. At this point, I feel like my hopes and dreams of doing music is just out the door. And it was on a Wednesday night. I decided to go to a chapel on base in Iraq. And that chaplain that night, he said, does anybody here have experience playing the guitar and leading worship? And so little did I know, God was pursuing my heart. And so I started leading worship in Iraq, come home thinking that I could just kind of have a restart. And now I'm dealing with all the anger and depression and anxiety, PTSD, all the things that come with, returning home from a war zone and having a different perspective now. So at that point, I had a mentor in my life that invited me to a Bible study and kind of gave that same invitation that chaplain did. He said, hey, why don't you bring your guitar to the Bible study? So there was this accountability and this mentorship that was going on in my life from 2010, and up until the point where I started writing music and releasing it full time, which I didn't start doing music full time till 2015. So there was this 2010, whenever I started getting really plugged into a Bible study, started writing more music, and started to record here and there just for fun. I would say that, that's the time whenever I was still ending my enlistment in the Navy. I was still, fulfilling all that. I was working a full-time job, trying to do music. And then 2015, I quit my job. And if you ever want to stop me at some point, you can totally
You're
stop
fine.
me.
You're fine.
But
It's good.
yeah, I'm just kind of blowing through the highlights for me. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
2015, I quit my job, started releasing music and touring full time. And I would say that I fell into this pit of complacency around that time. I was just trying to make a name for Justin. I was trying to climb a ladder and, just, I don't know, check the boxes, go through the motions. And in 2020, whenever everything started canceling and shutting down, that's whenever God really got my attention and pointed out some things, some pride and selfishness in me that I needed to allow him to work through inside of me. Needed him to just do like this complete renovation of my heart. And so at the end of 2020, I find myself in Salt Lake City. I'm actually going to Salt Lake City this weekend,
Very cool.
for Easter. And so it's the same church where I led worship back in 2020. And I got in my van to start heading to the next stop. And the Lord said, Justin, I want you to go home and I want you to do a night of worship and a night of do a revival in your hometown. I was like, okay, well, what's the venue, Lord? And he told me to do it at the courthouse. And my first response was, nope, no way. You're gonna have to find a different venue or a different servant, because I don't want to go back to the place where I had bad memories.
Yeah.
And so I lost that battle. I lost that little debate with the Lord. And little did I know that the night that we did the revival was a personal revival for myself. And I just remember the Lord specifically speaking into my heart and telling me, Justin, I know that you came up to these steps, to this courthouse, to this building 16 years ago, feeling like you're at the end of your rope. but I want you to know that the same plan that I had for you then is the same plan that I have for you now. The only difference is now that I have your full attention.
Hmm.
And it was after that revival. We've been doing the revivals at the courthouse now, me and my band, for the last, well, this year will be our 5th year in a row. And
Wow.
so it has become like an annual event. It's a day that I will never forget. And but that was whenever I started writing this record that I released 7 months ago, because I wanted to tell my prodigal story in 13 tracks.
That's incredible. And that just shows how God's hand was just like over you the whole time, even when you couldn't see it, even when you didn't want to see it. He was with you,
Oh yeah.
guiding you every single step of the way. I think
Oh yeah.
it's so incredible.
It's a
Now
crazy
you're
story.
it is. It's a crazy story. It's a crazy story of God's redemption on your life,
Yeah.
and what he's continuing to do. Like who knows, like 5 years from now, what you're gonna look back on and be like, wow, that was God. Only God could have done that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you have your new record made new out. So talk about it. Talk about the tracks, talk about kind of, it's your prodigal story. Like what excites you most about this record?
Um, it was a challenging record to write because it was we were about halfway through writing it and recording it. Like the production process was already we were going and going. And so I had this track list that I thought was the right track list. And I remember I was on the road. This was about a year and a half ago. So almost about a year before I released the record. Um, this church asked me to come and lead worship and also preach as well, and
Wow.
which was like way out of my comfort zone. I didn't know what I was going to do
Yeah.
whenever he took the guitar out of my hands. And but the Lord said, I want you to preach about the prodigal son. And I was
Hmm.
like, this is maybe like 6 months after we had our first revival and I had my personal revival. And so I was like, okay, Lord, I think I see what you're doing here. And so I preached about the prodigal son, and it was amazing to me um, how many people stayed after the service. This is like June of 2021. So how
Wow.
many people stayed after the service asking me to pray for their prodigals in their family?
Hmm.
Whether it be prodigal sons, prodigal daughters, prodigal dads, prodigal moms, and it was just like people from all different walks of life. And after that service, the Lord said, Justin, this record really needs to reach the prodigals. Like, even though I had already started the recording process, I was starting to see a theme. And
Yeah.
then met with my producer, and I was like, I feel like these songs don't even go with this theme now, this prodigal theme, this story of redemption. And so we actually kind of pushed these other songs aside. And I was like, all right. So I started writing, which was a stretch for me, halfway through the recording process. Like, now I'm digging into my soul and into my story. Like,
Hmm.
how can I continue to tell this prodigal story in these songs? So there's like four or five, yeah, about a handful of songs that were written like just months, sometimes weeks before the album was like sent off for like printing and all that stuff, and duplication. So it was kind of crazy. I think that was my favorite part of the process, was like
Yeah.
feeling that, knowing that I needed to write new material to tell that story.
Yeah.
And so it was exciting, but it was also challenging, because now I had to I had to think about, how I felt in certain moments of my story.
Yeah.
And so I wrote songs like there's a track called Worth Fighting For. There's a track called There's No Love Like the Love of Jesus, which literally came out of my journal. Like, that was like a journal entry. And and so songs like that I just wrote just months before, or even weeks before we decided to put it on the record. It was just something that I had never done before. But once it was all said and done and we got the mixes and the masters back, and
Yeah.
now we're working on like a track list of like, what order is the listener going to hear them in? What makes the most sense?
Yeah.
And that was really exciting, really fun. And now to see it reach people, um, and hear these stories after people have listened to these songs, I think that's the most exciting thing. And the thing that I'm most grateful for is that the Lord is working through this music. And then people, because I mean, one thing I want to do, I don't think I have a copy on my desk somewhere of the album. No, I don't. But um like one thing I wanted to do that was really important for me was to include my full testimony in like
Mm.
the printout of the, like whenever you hold the CD in your hands.
Yeah.
um and if somebody's watching this and they're like, a CD, what's a CD? It's like Spotify, but you can hold it. you can,
Right? Yeah, you just hold it and put it in the car, maybe, if your car
yeah,
has one.
yeah, if your car has a CD player, yeah.
Oh my goodness. But I think it's incredible too. Like you've taken the gift God's given you and you have now put it in the hands of so many different people, or if they're streaming, literally they can stream your testimony through music, which,
Oh
you
yeah.
don't hear a lot of people that'll do that they'll be so raw and vulnerable with their story, with their testimony.
Well, I think that is what really is connecting with my audience, and even people that might come across a song or the entire album on a streaming platform and don't know who I am. Like I think it's really cool how the Lord has just been speaking through that, and I think the authenticity, and just the I think it's really important in our world today to be authentic and be intentional. And I couldn't think of a better way to be authentic and intentional other than sharing your story that is, in some ways, in some parts of my story, it got really ugly.
Yeah.
But through the mess and through the ups and downs of life, like came at this testimony came out of it. So um one thing that pops up in my head is, someone recently asked me, um, it if you could go back, would you make any different decisions? If you could go back to age 15 and know which way you're going to go, would you go the other way, or would you make better decisions? And um, I just said, I don't think I'd want to change a thing. Like, yeah, there's a part of me that, like, there's the flesh in me that wants to say, like, oh, I regret this or I regret that. I wish I would have done this. Or But really, every single decision that I made, every choice that I made, um, allowed the Lord to walk me through this journey, whether I knew that He was doing it or not, to bring me to this place now to where I can be a witness to others that might be
Absolutely.
going through this. They might be going through the same thing, or they might have a kid that's going through the same thing.
Absolutely. That's so true. And that's so authentic and so raw, um, for people to hear, being so transparent with your story.
Yeah.
What is just something that you hope when people listen to this, listen to your album, listen to hear whenever you share your testimony, what do you hope that they receive?
Um, it's always my hope and prayer that whenever people listen to my music, that they experience the love of Jesus, that
Hmm.
they experience the hope that He can only give, and the peace that only He can provide. Um, that is my hope and prayer, and that might sound cliche, but it really is something that I say from the stage. It's something that I say to people in person, you know, um,
Yeah.
and that whenever they experience this hope and this peace and this joy that only He can provide, it's my prayer that, like, it encourages people to go out and just be the hands and feet of Jesus, just to be Jesus with skin on. Um, because the world's not going to get any better if we don't do that, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Amen.
and so, yeah, that's my hope and prayer.
I think that's a good prayer. It just starts with one person to make the domino effect. So you can
Oh,
always be the change
100%.
for one person.
Yeah, even if that's what I said before. that was my prayer before I even released this record. I said, Lord, even if it reaches one person, so far it's reached me. So it is done. The Lord has done the work, but it's been really amazing to hear the stories and people sharing, you know, with me. Like I recently wrote a letter to a guy that's in prison right now because I met his mom, and she read my story, and she came to an event, and she said, "Would you consider writing to my son? He's incarcerated right now." I said, "Give me his address. I'll write him." And
Wow.
and so just to, I think it's really important to be intentional with the prodigals in our lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. One question we ask everybody that comes on is, what is keeping you present during this day, this present moment? Because so much comes at us for our attention. So it's something that's keeping you present.
Um, that's a really good question. I think I don't know, like I'm the kind of person that loves to just sit outside, sit on a swing, lay in a hammock, and just like, I mean, it doesn't even have to be anything relaxing. Like last night, so we had like this big storm come through Texas about a week or so ago. I was out of town, but coming home, just a lot of branches were just lying around, just stuff that needed to be tossed on the fire.
Yeah.
And so cleaning up around my house, branches and little sticks, and so I don't mow over them. And I was just having just this one-on-one with the Lord. And we not only we don't always know what God is up to, and we don't always know the big picture, but I think it's important for us to just kind of take a moment to spend time with him. Like even whenever I was picking up sticks last night, I was just like, it was, I would stop for a minute, I would look up in the sky and just like talk with him for a minute, just like you and I are talking now.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had some questions for the Lord. And I think it's really important. And in that moment also, like it was a moment where I didn't have my phone on me. So I couldn't see, any kind of social media. I couldn't be distracted by that. It was just me and him. And so I think those little moments where it's easy to get distracted, it's easy to feel stressed out with, like, I mean, I could have easily felt stressed out by, like, oh man, I got all these limbs to pick up, and get frustrated or caught up in the moment. But I think it's really important for us to like step back a little bit, because it helps me to stay present whenever I invite God's presence, or at least like slowing down to identify his presence, because I think sometimes we can go about our day and the Lord's present in our
Yeah.
days. It's not like, oh Lord, I invite your presence here. Like he's everywhere.
Yeah.
He's omnipresent, but like
Yeah.
I think it's really important to just slow down, take a few steps back, whether it's away from your phone, away from just the routine, and getting in his presence, and knowing that, like, okay, I'm just gonna sit in your presence right now. I'm gonna acknowledge
Good.
your presence. That's what helps me keep present, to be intentional, to be what word am I looking for? I don't know. Yeah, just I love that question. Just how do you stay present? I love
Yeah,
that.
I think it's hard, right? Like it's hard because there's so much, like our phones are distracting us, or we have to get to the next event, the next meeting, whatever it may be, but there's so much coming
Yeah.
at us. And so
Yeah. No,
it's a hard
thanks for
thing.
asking me, because I needed to answer that. My heart needed to answer it. So
Well, hey, there's just sometimes we need to take a pause and take a minute to just
yeah.
breathe, right?
Yeah. Right. That's right.
So, what can people look forward to in this next season for you in this next chapter?
Um, well, I am writing my third record.
That's
And
exciting.
it is really exciting. And I would say we're we're pushing maybe like 25%, 25% done with the
Very
third
cool.
record. So writing new music, and then I think I'm gonna release a couple of singles this year. Not really sure. Like I know I'm gonna hit the road this year. I'm gonna be going over to the UK this year to do a festival over there. So if anybody's listening in from the UK, I'll be over in your area. But yeah, just really new music coming soon, even though the new music is, just it's still kind of fresh, it's
Yeah.
not even a year old yet, but yeah, people can look forward to new music and new music videos um, and the encouragement that comes with it. So
Amazing. Now, where can people go to keep up with you on everything that's happening and everything that's going on?
I am the most I'm the most active on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. But really, I mean, people can, I haven't posted on if TikTok's going to stick around, we don't know. Um,
Nobody
uh,
knows.
Nobody knows. Like they said, it was going to go away and it's still there. And so people could find me on TikTok. One of my dogs, there's like a viral video of one of my dogs on there. It's pretty funny. And people go to my TikTok, they're like, wow, he has a lot of followers. It's not because of the music. It was because one video of my dog went viral. And I mean worldwide. It was crazy. I think over in the UK it's still like on some kind of funny dog show or something like that. So that's funny. Yeah, you can find me on any kind of platform, anywhere you listen to stream music. You can find the new record, made new and previous released songs. So
Well,
yeah,
very cool. Justin, thanks so
yeah.
much for doing this today and taking the time and just sharing your heart, sharing your story. It's been so fun. We've loved it.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast today. We do not take it lightly that you listened. I am so excited to have introduced you to our new friend, Justin. Make sure you go download and stream his music. Give him a follow on social media. It helps, y'all. I promise you. If you are wondering what is happening in our ministry, you can keep up with us on all the social platforms that we are on at This Day Ministries. I pray that you know that you are loved by the God of the universe, and he loves you so much more than you could ever ask, think, or imagine.